Welcome to Conversazioni at Camping Business. Glamping is where stunning nature meets modern luxury. This kind of travel is becoming more and more popular all over the world, and of course in the United States. Today we have a special guest, Ruben Martinez, founder of the American Glamping Association. American Glamping Association was born with a clear goal, creating opportunities for new and existing business owners with the emerging glamping industry in order to grow as a community. The association provides resources and education regarding the glamping industry through internal tools and external partnerships. Ruben, first of all, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. It's great to be on.
Okay, let's start with the first question. How did you have the idea to found the American Glamping Association and why?
Yeah, so we had actually started it years ago. It was actually the founder of Under Canvas and Sarah Dusick. And we were receiving inbound just because of where we sat in the industry, questions around permitting, help on capital, banking, just any and every question in the space. And we would take those emails and we would take those calls and just help out as best we could. So we decided that it was probably best that we just standardize that process, create an association that could help anybody and everybody in the space. And so it wasn't honestly because we had a bright idea. It was really because that's what the industry needed at the time and today. And we were just in the right position to provide those tools and resources for the glamping industry.
Okay, how many members do you have in your association?
So we've got several hundred businesses that are in the association. So 75% of the organizations that we represent are aspiring new, existing veteran operators. So those that have the land and are looking to provide this type of unique accommodation in the space. And then the other 30-ish% are any and everybody else in the space. This is a large economy. So you've got investors, you've got real estate groups, you've got banks, you've got insurance, products, services, manufacturers. And so it's important for us not just to serve the operators, which are a big chunk of the space, but then also all the other emerging businesses. And so, yeah, when people become a member, they can have as many of their staff members as part of the association. So yeah, there's well over 300 businesses just in the glamping space that we provide support for on a daily basis.
Okay, so not only the campsites or glamping sites, but also the whole sector is in your association.
There's a whole,
what do you offer? Okay.
So sorry. Yeah, there really truly is an economy and an industry behind it. So that was an important mandate for us, is that if some type of organization is looking to provide value in the space, that it was important for us to be that entity that helps to support them.
Okay, you already told me a little bit about what you do for your members, but can you be more specific also? What do you offer to your community?
Yeah, so in short, our job is to get everybody to their version of their finish line, and everybody has one. But we have certain things that we provide to the members, such as a weekly member meetup call. So that's once a week. We have guest speakers that come in that are industry experts. It could be a founder of a large or small operation. It could be somebody speaking about raising capital or ADA accessibility or off-grid solutions, kind of anything and everything that could be of value to our members in this space. And then we also record those sessions so that people can go back and watch them if they were busy that day, or new members can go back and take a look at the library of videos and sessions that we have for our speakers. We also have an internal communication channel, which is really important. So it's members only. A lot of times in this space, people are out researching, trying to find the right answers, make the right connection, but they end up going down maybe a rabbit hole in Google. And at the end of the day, they might find some information, but really they say to themselves, man, it'd just be really good to talk to somebody who's done this before. So that communication channel provides a direct access to members who are going through the glamping process, have already have their operations up and running. It provides a venue for products and services to engage with operators who are looking to potentially buy those products and services. We've got an AGA podcast that we do, which interviews industry leaders. We have discounts, and typically most members have 2 or 3 things that are really top of mind that we help them out individually with. There's additional aspects like consulting and things of that nature. But honestly, we take a personal approach and help at the local level. There's a glamping show that happens here in Colorado, which is a trade show once a year. And then there's also an official magazine of the American Glamping Association as well. So we try and get as much content and interaction and access to information within the industry as possible.
Talking about this show, are you engaged in this show? Is this your show or you're just a partner?
So we're a partner in it. We're a media partner. We helped. There's the glamping show that's in the UK, and so Peter Rusberg and I kind of kicked off the conversation in England about bringing a show here to the United States. So we've helped along the way. David Course and his team are the organizers and do a great job of doing all the hard work and making sure everything runs. But we help out with the speakers and the content and anything else that's needed along the way. But we're very close to it, and we're very excited for the show again this year. I think it's on its 6th year, possibly.
Okay, super. What is the share of pure glamping sites and campsites that have created a glamping space?
Yeah, so I think that's the interesting thing that's happening here. At the beginning, maybe 10 years ago or later, at the beginning of glamping here in the States, there's a bit more just pure glamping play. So that would mean a larger operator would put 10, 15, 20, 50 pure glamping units on a piece of property. And then you fast forward, even pre-COVID, but definitely COVID, threw some more fuel on the fire for this trend. Now there's a lot more mixed use, and it's really kind of a 50-50 blend. So there's now more campsites that are saying, hey, I've got RVs and campsites, but man, I can make $300 to $600 a night if I have for an average daily rate for these glamping accommodations. And maybe 10 years ago, that would have been a weird, or it just wasn't as common. So, you didn't see that as much. It was really everything was really more of a pure glamping play. You wouldn't put, 1 or 2 units just randomly on a campsite. It just wasn't as common. But now we're just seeing a mixture of everything from more and more pure glamping plays, RV parks that are transforming into mixed use. So some glamping, campsites that are completely converting into more glamping space. So it's still evolving, and there's still a lot that is shaking out. But wineries and hotel groups and really everybody's getting into this more unique outdoor play. And so yeah, we're seeing a big mixture, kind of a 50-50 split of what people are doing.
Okay, thank you. What about the regulations? I mean, if you have a land, can you install a glamping accommodation, or do you have to be an operator in the touristic sector?
Yeah, good question. So the 2 main hurdles that have occurred in this space and will continue to be in this space are permitting, so permissions and regulations, and capital. And so when it comes to the regulation side of it, it is complicated. It's something that we do help our members out with. So every county within the United States could view these operations completely different. And they could be counties that are right next to each other. And states that are right next to each other also could view these operations completely different. They could say, okay, well, in our county, you have to be permitted as a campground, or you have to be a semi-permanent structure, or that's a temporary structure, or that's conditional use. So the reality is that even though there is a huge boom and continues to be significant capital coming into the space here, I mean, large scale projects every day, the regulation slows people down because they do have to make sure that they're going through the proper process. So the good news is that, any mom and pop or anybody who is new to the space, can start a glamping operation. So they don't have to be a larger operator or have any special skills. If they have the capital, they can, and they got the land. They just have to go through the formal regulation process to get the proper permissions. And in some areas, they say, hey, you don't even have to ask me. You can do whatever you want. It's your property. And some say, hey, we don't even have a category for that. Nobody's really built anything like that. So we've got to figure this out together, and then everything in between. So that's still evolving and continues to be a challenge. And some areas are more, easier to develop than others.
It's almost the same as in Europe. Every country has different rules, and it's quite hard. In Italy, it's very hard to have all the permissions.
I believe it.
How glamping has grown in the last 10 years?
Yeah, I think the main thing that we follow is capital, right? So, what is capital thinking of this space, and how has that changed over the last 10 years? So, 10 years ago and longer, this was just maybe an asset class that people weren't as confident in. They saw the returns, they saw that it was exciting, but they really wanted it to grow a little bit more before they started to put large scale capital. There's a few exceptions, several big projects, but broadly speaking, there wasn't large, investment that we see today. And then 5 years ago, pre-pandemic, that started to change. There was countless projects that were being funded, hotel groups that were coming in and putting capital, real estate investment groups, private equity groups. So banks started to understand this a little bit more and started to give loans. So 5 years ago, that really started to take on a whole different life form. And then the pandemic hit, and then obviously everybody started to rush towards the outdoors. And you look at some of those hotel groups, for example, they maybe had raised large sums of money to put into a hotel, and the pandemic hits, and that was the last place that they wanted to put their money in, right? They were not going to put it into traditional hospitality. So, as we follow the money coming I know we're not completely out of the COVID or the pandemic, but through the tougher years, the money is still very excited about investing in this space. And what they learned, from COVID was essentially that this type of travel, it's not recession proof, but it's recession resilient, right? This unique outdoor travel did really well during the pandemic. They were able to charge, 2 to 3 times the ADR that they would get at a hotel for a fraction of the startup cost. And now there's more and more data, right? So that's the one thing that the industry has been needing for multiple reasons. But the hotel camping, even camping and RV space, has a lot of data behind it. So the money can say, okay, I'm comfortable around this type of investment because we can go back 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years. In the glamping space, we can't yet do that, but we're starting to. And with that, the money will continue to come in. And so I think, how it's grown in the last 10 years is really signified by what the capital is thinking and how, excited they still are at this point for these types of investments.
Thank you. Which are the most requested experiences by consumers?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Just like camping and the RV world, it's not that different in that people don't go glamping and then just sit in their tent all day, right? They'll just sit in their Airstream or treehouse or whatever it might be. They want to experience, this is experiential based travel. So, the more common, are properties that have hiking, rafting, mountain biking, fly fishing, something that's either on the property or in the area. Many popular destinations are near national parks, which have a lot to do, in the national parks. Um, there's also been a focus on, supporting those local economies. So some of these small towns, especially as people are flying maybe a little bit less. I know some of the business travel and other travels bouncing back, but still this hyper local travel drive to destinations are still very popular. And so often these types of glamping operations can be in these close to or in driving distance of smaller towns that, you know, have been in need of economic development. And so there's, restaurants or bars or shops and things that people can drive to and experience. And, they've maybe never been to the town before, but, they poke around and they kind of support that. So, wineries and distilleries and breweries and things like that. But I think the most popular are definitely when a property owner can provide several experiences on the property itself, and where people don't have to drive to somewhere to experience that.
Okay. Are there some new trends in accommodations?
Yeah, I think what everybody's trying to figure out right now, because, obviously here in the States, you've got, was it 333 million people? You've got a vast territory of land, and every state is completely different. And so glamping operations in New York are different than, in Texas, right? Not widely different, but they have different things to consider. And one of those main items to consider is seasonality, right? With the amount of snow, for example, that you get in upstate New York in the wintertime, and then for the heat wave that's going on right now in Texas. So the main trend that I think people are leaning towards and trying to sort out in a few different ways are seasonality. So traditionally, the mindset in some of these climates was, we'll be open 6-7 months out of the year. We got to shut down when it gets too cold or too hot, and then we'll start back up. But obviously there's limitations to that, because you're only getting revenue for 6-7 months out of the year instead of 12 months out of the year. So there's been great innovation on the manufacturing side for more all-season insulated temperature control style units that allow for operators to run their operation 12 months out of the year instead of just 6 or 7 months, which I think is an important part. And then we're keeping close eye on any of the off-grid trends. So a lot of these properties are in very remote areas, or the more remote they are, the more beautiful they are, right? I mean, that's kind of a logical statement. Some of the properties that are closer to a major metropolitan have already been built out. There's too much traffic. It's just too accessible, right? And so as people are starting to acquire and begin to develop more remote areas, something that we're keeping a close eye on are some of these off-grid utility solutions. So better solar solutions, a better off-grid toilet and bathroom solutions and water solutions, because it's obviously very expensive to try and develop a super remote area that could, cause issues for tying in utilities or sewer or septic. It's not cheap. So I think more and more innovation is coming out on how to provide these off-grid utility solutions for these types of projects, because there's a big demand for them.
Hey, I'm quite curious about, in Europe, when you talk about glamping, we talk about some unusual accommodation. I mean, for example, tree houses or lodge tents, or everything is glamour and is related to the camping, is called glamping. Not really, the normal chalet, the normal houses, but something spiritual. We had near Milan, we have an airplane which has been converted in accommodation. We have a school bus, which is accommodation. We have for sure the Airstream caravan, which are considered super glamping accommodation. So I would like to understand from you, what do you mean by glamping?
Yeah.
Similar to our feel, or is something different?
Yeah, no, definitely similar to your guys' feel. We years ago there was a call for us to, from the association side, kind of define a little bit more clearly what glamping is and isn't, and that we thought that that was tough, right? Because the market's still evolving. There's a lot of innovation and creative work that's getting done. And so we believe that that would limit the growth if we said, hey, it's only these 6 or 7, because people kept asking that question, like, what is glamping and what isn't glamping? So, really it's that direct access to Mother Nature, a certain level of comfort, and then a unique structure is really more how we want to clarify glamping. So yes, I mean, there's every day I feel like there's more and more really creative structures that are coming out from a soft-sided canvas side, but in the tent side, but even yes, airstreams, school buses, airplanes, igloos, barns, yurts, domes, the different style of bell tents, different style of safari tents. And it feels like it's getting more and more creative because, again, this space has and will continue to reward uniqueness. And nobody really wants to have, an operation that's exactly like somebody else's operation. And the best way to differentiate yourself in a glamping operation is the type of structure that you're providing. So yes, there's some really cool, innovative, creative structures that are popping up every single day. So yeah, I would say that we're closer to how you guys are seeing it.
Okay, thank you. Did the pandemic boost glamping in the US as well as it did in Europe?
Absolutely. So there was a slowdown as soon as it hit, as everybody was, hunkered down in their places. So for the first 2 months, really things kind of shut off. But then when the pandemic hit, it was just a natural escape, right? People had been in quarantine for quite some time, and the last thing that you want to do is maybe go stay in a hotel, right? It's eerily similar to what you've been doing for the last 2 months. 2 months, you want to be outside, you want to be experiencing things. So without a doubt, people were at record level occupancy, record level ADRs, record level development, investment. So it just really checked everybody's boxes for the type of travel, and really asking them some questions of why do I really do certain types of travels, and so it really became this gateway, we believe, to the outdoors.
The global economic uncertainty, inflation is increasing also in the US, is going to affect the glamping industry.
So that's a good question, and going back to the whole tracking the capital, when we speak to them weekly, they're saying, listen, we're still investing heavily in the space. It's recession resilient. I think the prices, per night that were record level in some areas, just pretty ridiculous, will stabilize. So I don't think it'll negatively affect pricing. I think it'll just stabilize to a more normal price point. And at this point, glamping still seems to be a pretty safe bet for capital providers. So, at this moment, inflation and kind of the economic effect that's going on in the market, I think will mostly affect pricing. But then also, I mean, from an inflation standpoint, as people say, all right, well, I'm a consumer and I don't want to hop on a flight, but I'll drive. But I don't want to drive 2 different states because of gas prices are high. So they'll stay a bit more local and fine as long as there's supply in their area. They'll drive and still stay. So we're not seeing it negatively affecting, just more stabilizing.
Okay, last question. You do also marketing activities, I think, in your Glamping Association. You told me that you have a magazine. What are your future plans to promote glamping across the country? Is that your target as well? Is this something that your association has to do?
Yeah, so the organizers at the glamping show do a fantastic job of putting on a one of a kind event. So that's important. Telling the stories that we have through the podcast series, the Glamping podcast, is important as well. But honestly, the best way for us to promote glamping is to make sure that each one of our members become successful, right? Because then they really do the hard work of going out there and having a one-of-a-kind operation. So anything and everything that we can do to kind of one-on-one support our members is the best marketing tool, because it just, it gets their business out there. They get their operation up and running. They have a great place for people to come and stay, and it kind of markets itself. So our focus, is to move the industry forward. And typically the best way to do that is, one operation at a time. And we want to avoid any situation where somebody gives up or doesn't move forward just because it's, they didn't feel like they had the right tools or resources or help or guidance. And so that's really our focus here moving forward, is providing those solutions so that everybody can get to their finish line.
Ruben, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you. I hope to be able to come to your glamping show in US. Maybe
Please.
I will organize my presence there, and I would
great.
like to have you again as guest of our Conversazioni at Camping Business. Thank you very much, and see you for the next episode of Conversazioni at Camping Business.
Thank you very much.